I'm Priyanka from the Global Schools Forum. I'm your facilitator for today. Before I hand over to our brilliant presenters from Sesame Workshop, a quick background on the what, why, and how of the showcase. As MMA is a diverse group of members with varying expertise, the idea of the showcase is really to facilitate knowledge sharing and connections amongst MMA members and to highlight innovative approaches and best practices in ECDIE. This is the third session in this series, which was started in September this year. If you'd like to present about your program in the future in any of the upcoming showcases, please write to Lola from MMA. On that note, I will hand over to Leslie, Senior Manager, International Education, and Lilith, Director, International Education from Sesame Workshop, to share more about the Play to Learn Resource Hub. If you have any questions for them, please leave them in the chat, and we'll come back and take them up during the Q&A time. Over to you, Leslie and Lilith.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As Priyanka shared, my name is Lilith. I'm an education director at Sesame Workshop, and I'm here today with my colleague, Leslie Cuellar, Senior Education Manager, and we work closely together on the Play to Learn program in the International Education Department. We're very excited to be here this morning to share some of the early childhood and emergency resources that were created through Play to Learn. We know that some of our colleagues from our partners, the International Rescue Committee and BRAC, may be joining the call today, and we also want to recognize their incredible contributions to much of the work we are speaking out about today. Before I begin, a quick intro on Play to Learn. As I mentioned, Play to Learn is made up of a consortium of teams from Sesame, the IRC, BRAC, and funded by the LEGO Foundation. The vision of Play to Learn was to establish play-based early childhood development programming as an essential component of every humanitarian response, working across the pillars of reach and impact, learning, and advocacy. Now, looking at those pillars of reach and impact, learning, and advocacy, our goals on PTL were to design, implement, and test and evaluate a range of play-based learning programs for crisis settings, to learn what works and why, and to influence key actors such as other NGOs, institutions, and governments to prioritize early childhood education in emergencies. To help us reach and impact as many children as possible through a broad and diverse set of program models, we created effective, flexible video content that can be used for direct service integration and mass media in humanitarian response globally, both in this initiative and beyond. And of course, above all, our goal was to help children and families affected by the Syrian and Rohingya refugee crises. Sorry, there's a little delay when I click to the next slide. Now, after over 5 years, we have reached millions of children in Bangladesh and the Middle East and North Africa region through a multi-layered approach that combined innovative direct service program models, remote and hybrid programs, and mass media. Importantly, we were able to evaluate these programs and generate evidence on what works in early childhood development in humanitarian settings. Today, we're going to talk a bit about a few of the resources that Play to Learn has created that will continue to contribute to our work moving forward, and many of which we hope will be useful to you and your networks in your own work. First is the Play to Learn Resource Hub, which I will cover, and then I will hand it over to Leslie to discuss Watch, Play, Learn. Before I begin, if you want to use this QR, you can scan it on your phone. Or you should be able to hover over it with your mouse and click the link and view the resource hub while I'm speaking or later at your own leisure. Now, one of our commitments with PTL was to create ECDiE program models that had the potential for scale, replication, or adaptation, not only by ourselves, but by others in the field. To that end, we created the Play to Learn Resource Hub as a repository for evidence, practical tools, and resources from across PTL programs for other practitioners to access. In the Resource Hub, you can find actual materials that we used in implementation in multiple languages. You can also find perspectives from the many staff who work in ECDiE programs in these environments. This is a snapshot of what you can find in the Resource Hub. In the program catalog, You can see program descriptions and materials from a range of programs implemented in diverse contexts. Programs such as remote and hybrid education, caregiver MHPSS, disability inclusion, and more. Resources include monitoring tools, training resources, curricula, print content like storybooks, posters, and media we use working with young kids and families. In the resource collections, you can find programs, research, and reports organized by theme. For example, we have collections on play-based learning, digital media and technology, and caregiver engagement. We also share many insightful reports. You can see here practitioner reports is listed, and I call out the core elements of success. So these are reports that synthesize key lessons learned and recommendations in important areas of our work that can serve as guidance for future program development and implementation. These are really geared to be very practical and accessible, and are written in a range of styles. So some are interviews, some are simplified briefs and reports. And finally, we also share the evidence generated from the research that was conducted by NYU Global Ties for Children on various PTL programs. Here we have a QR that is a recording of an INEE webinar that we recently held with our PTL consortium partners, where we showcase some specific program models and some of the resources and really go in depth with an exploration of the resource hub. So you can also access that, the QR. And I wanted to highlight one page in the resource hub as an example. So the title is here in blue, The Value of Educational Media in Crisis. It's a resource collection that highlights the unique power of media in crisis settings with a brief that synthesizes the evidence from multiple studies of PTL and Ahmad Simsim. It also includes program models that integrated media in exciting and impactful ways and really demonstrated that high quality media can be an important ingredient in an effective early childhood humanitarian program. In addition, you can also find the new Dose for Impact guidance note. So for those who are interested in incorporating media video segments into their programs, this guidance note recommends the minimum amount of viewing of high quality video segments to achieve impact in a range of key learning outcomes. This is based on analysis of dozens of studies of media programs, including but not limited to Sesame. And this can be used to define dosage. So knowing how many times children need to watch a segment or a video rather, in order to learn the intended learning goal. And of course, we know that any high quality facilitation and teaching around that video content will enhance learning. We're really excited that we had the opportunity to create this resource hub as part of Play to Learn, and we hope that you all get a chance to explore it and use some of these resources in your own work. And if you have any specific questions about the kinds of things you can find or something that you're looking for, please feel free to put it in the chat and we can talk about it later. Now I'm going to pass it over to Leslie, who will speak more in depth about Watch, Play, Learn.
Thank you, Lilith, and hello, everyone. I'm really excited to introduce you all to our Watch, Play, Learn and some of the toolkit resources that we have. To begin with some context, as part of our vision for Play to Learn, as Lilith mentioned, we wanted to develop globally relevant crisis-sensitive media to reach children impacted by crisis and conflict and provide them with continuous learning and development opportunities. So as part of this development process, we created content in alignment with the nurturing care framework, which emphasizes health, nutrition, security, responsive caregiving, and early learning. This content was tested globally to ensure relevance across multiple contexts. And we conducted formative testing in 11 languages with displaced children and caregivers in 9 countries in consultation with local communities, as well as ECDiE experts from around the globe. Our Watch Play Learn global library consists of 140 play-based animations. Each of these animations are about 5 minutes long, and they cover math, social emotional learning, child protection, health and safety, and science topics. And these are all available in 27 languages. In terms of our reach, Watch Pay Learn has reached approximately 30 million viewers, reaching families in 32 countries via broadcast and digital, and then in 6 countries via media-enhanced direct service partnerships. So before I go to the next slide, in regard to our direct services, in 2022, we launched pilots with UNHCR in Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh, Universidad de los Andes and their Semillas de Apego program in Colombia, and then Save the Children in Dadaab, Kenya. And we did this to identify the conditions under which our Watch, Play, Learn content is most effective, particularly in addressing those challenges of delivering impactful learning experiences in crisis and conflict settings. And it was through these pilots that we explored the potential for creating programs that leverage the benefits of media and technology in ways that are both efficient and cost effective. So with that, just to share some of what we've learned, key findings from our global evaluation showed that Watch, Play, Learn improved children's learning and development, particularly in literacy, numeracy, and social emotional skills across these contexts. In Colombia specifically, our partner, Universidad de los Andes, found statistically significant improvements in caregiver-child relationships between those who engaged with Watch, Play, Learn and those versus those who did not in the Semillas de Apego program. And then programs reported that Watch, Play, Learn increased engagement and attendance among students and adults with higher overall attendance rates. And this was particularly for girls as well. So in Kenya, Watch, Play, Learn improved teaching practices, including classroom management, teacher-student interactions, as well as teachers' digital literacy. And then lastly, our flexible low to no tech content delivery approach supported program operations with partners, with partners valuing our training, technology guidance, and extensive program management support. So now I'm going to jump into some of our Watch, Play, Learn toolkit. So before I go into that, I just want to say that based on our findings from participants, we developed the Watch, Play, Learn toolkit specifically for frontline early childhood practitioners working in emergency settings. We wanted this to be a set of cohesive, user-friendly, and adaptable tools. And so we really essentially wanted this toolkit to support the integration of Watch, Play, Learn and play-based learning across sectors such as education, child protection, and health to provide program managers, facilitators, and monitoring specialists with those practical tools to enhance their existing programs. Just to give some context in terms of the development process, along with pilot findings, we also leveraged our stakeholders and did internal stakeholder interviews. We also did co-design workshops with our implementing partners, and then also leveraged an external reference group that represented 8 different country contexts, and they cover sectors such as teacher training, education, child protection, and mental health and psychosocial support. So where the toolkit can be used, this can be used anywhere where practitioners are working and interacting with children. So that can be center-based early childhood development programs, that can be mobile clinics, caregiver or child psychosocial support programs, and then also hybrid early childhood development programs, so either in-person or remote programs. So to jump into essentially our core tools of the Watch, Play, Learn toolkit, we have these 5 core tools. The first tool is our standard operating procedures for program managers. And so this is essentially a step-by-step guide for setting up and implementing Watch, Play, Learn. So beginning with conducting, the needs analysis to content development, monitoring, and reporting. And then our second tool is essentially a suite of tools, particularly for facilitators. And this supports everything from session planning to how to facilitate watch, play, learn, setting up those play spaces, and working with different age groups, accommodating various needs, and also most importantly, giving tips and guidance for how facilitators can take care of their own mental health and well-being. As part of these facilitator tools that you might not see here are 4 session booklets, each covering those 4 content areas. And so those provide those scripted and prompted lessons for each of the content areas. And then they provide also those supplementary materials and recommendations for low to no cost materials. We also have a monitoring and feedback guide for monitoring specialists. And so this tool essentially provides our monitoring approach and includes those required and recommended indicators for monitoring watch, play, learn. We also have, for integrating content across sectors, we provide tip sheets on adapting the materials to different sectors. So that, as I mentioned earlier, could be in education, child protection, mental health, psychosocial support, health, or WASH. And then lastly, we have some guidelines and considerations for selecting technology. So this is essentially a quick 3-step guide to help program managers select that software and hardware, depending on their program needs, also setting up the play space, and then accommodating learners with diverse needs. So this tool is meant to be used in tandem with our more comprehensive technology decision roadmap. And again, something that I don't have here is that we also have an offline watch, play, learn app that houses all our videos and can be used in remote or low resource settings. And then we also are working on a public-facing social emotional learning guide. As social emotional learning content has been our most demanded content and has been the most used across our direct service programs. And so this public-facing resource will be a 4-week mini kit that's focused on supporting facilitators and working with children on helping them identify their emotions and also how to regulate those emotions. And so this resource will include 4 videos that will be publicly available and that will be aligned with those 4 lesson plans and also provide some supplementary resources. So how can folks access the Watch, Play, Learn videos and toolkit? You can explore our Watch, Play, Learn webpage where we offer a preview of those tools that I mentioned and then some of the evidence that we've gathered from our pilots. And then for partners who want to access our full resources, we provide access to our Watch, Play, Learn Hub, which is a secure online platform that houses our entire library of Watch, Play, Learn videos in multiple languages, along with our complete toolkit. And so this will be available under a costed license, and then access is open for potential and confirmed partners. And so that is all I have for Watch, Play, Learn. If you want to learn more, you can visit our webpage. You can scan this QR code, and then also you can reach us at isioperations@sesame.org. So thank you all for your time, and I think I'll hand it back to Priyanka.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Leslie and Lilith, for this very insightful presentation. Very excited to deep dive into the resource of myself. I think even a lot of community members at GSF will find this resource really valuable. So really excited to share this ahead as well. Any questions from the group for our presenters? I don't see anything in the chat so far. So feel free to come off mute as well and directly ask your questions. We have about 7 to 8 minutes, so I think we can definitely take a question or two.
It's Trisha here from the Moving Minds Alliance. It's such an incredible program and an array of resources, and it would be fantastic to hear something about the development process, because obviously there was a significant amount of resource which enabled, an investment which enabled this incredible resource to be developed. So a level of resource that is not always available to other types of organizations. And of course, it's fantastic that they can leverage this and it's open source and accessible. But I think it's also interesting to hear maybe some of the, what were the critical elements of the development, implementation, and learning generation that maybe can be distilled and used in a lighter touch way by other partners who are also seeking to develop proof of concept or, to respond in these types of contexts. It would be interesting to reflect on that.
Sure. I mean, there's so, there's so many different programs under Play to Learn. Are you speaking about the resource hub specifically,
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
okay?
I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah,
talking specifically about the resources that have been presented today
sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I think one key component is that learning was a core goal and kind of an outcome, right? A necessary outcome of the grant and the initiative from the beginning. So, it was important to generate evidence, of course, through the research that was conducted by NYU on the programs themselves. But in thinking about that goal, and there's a large team of folks at Sesame and IRC and BRAC who were part of this. One of the ways that we thought about contributing to that learning is through creating this resource hub, right? So not just the hardcore RCT evidence, but these kinds of practical documents that we don't often get to see, right? We don't always get to see other people's storybooks or monitoring, checklists and training guides. There's really, really detailed, real implementation materials in the resource hub. So I think that prioritizing learning and sharing from the beginning created that space to devote the people time that's really needed to gathering these. So of course, these resources all exist because we had to create them and use them in implementation, but it did take a significant amount of human resource to collect that information. And we also were lucky to work with an organization as consultants called Childhood Education International. And they did a comprehensive review of the materials from across these programs. And they were able to provide recommendations about how to present it. So how to organize it in a way that's digestible, of course, for others in the field. And then they also were very helpful in interviewing folks from the different teams. So, once we figured out what are the roles, what are the themes, what are the topics that we want to present above and beyond just a catalog of programs, they interviewed many different people. As I said, they reviewed the materials themselves, and they helped us to create a lot of those reports that I mentioned, the practitioner reports. And I encourage you to check those out. Core elements of success is if you go to the front page of the resource hub, it's right at the bottom. And so they helped us to do a lot of that heavy lifting. I think, that some of the challenges are the challenges that we always face, right? It's like making sure that you're tracking all of the tools that you created and keeping them in an accessible place and working across the consortium. We're very lucky to have strong partners who contributed a lot, and we're very generous in sharing all of these resources to really make the resource hub a rich repository. And yeah, I mean, I could speak for a long time about many different aspects, but I hope that you get to poke around in there later and find something. If you find one thing that's interesting or useful to you, that would be a great success for us.
I must admit, I had a poke around before the webinar, and there's lots in there that's very interesting. I mean, the resources are just fantastic. It's an incredible sort of global resource that you've created. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from anyone else?
Here, Priyanka. Joyce Nairoba, Communications Manager Labe. Thank you very much, Lilith and SW for sharing this. And I was just quickly wondering whether this is going to be a growing resource hub. Like, are we going to be adding in much more? For example, what happens if we work out something and, would like to share that? Would that something that would come into the hub? And what happens if we would like to adapt some of these materials into local languages? Is there a procedure we have to follow? I wanted to know a little bit about that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Those are two great, very important questions, and I'll answer them to the best of my knowledge. So we are approaching the end of Play to Learn. And we're hopeful that there will be future opportunities with the Lego Foundation to continue this work. But at this stage, I think what's in the resource hub is what will be there, and we'll see if we are able to add. But it would be whatever we would add would be from the work and the research generated by Play to Learn itself. So it's not an open resource hub where other organizations would add to it, but it sounds like the work that Priyanka is doing might be more of that kind of a resource hub. Is that right? Yeah. Great. So I think we're very lucky that in our field, in our sector, people are very open and generous in sharing what we're learning and best practices and tools, because we have to be, right? And so there are other organizations and networks who are creating those kinds of hubs. But this hub is really dedicated to Play to Learn. And then the question about adaptation, I see there's another question in the chat similarly about if and how these materials have been adapted by other development or humanitarian partners. I'm not aware of that yet. The resource hub just went live about a month ago. So I'd be interested, if you do download anything, use anything and adapt it in any way, then please, shoot us an email, let us know. There's contact information on the resource hub in many places. I think that we would encourage you to use the tools that you find there as reference material, as the base to be adapted for your work. The only thing I would say is that, if it's, that's what I would say. Just go ahead, try it out. We're very interested to see how you're able to use it and work with it. Yeah. Thank you.
This is fascinating work. Thank you both for sharing. And thank you everyone else for joining. I think we're almost at time. We'll be sharing the recording soon with everyone, but if you'd like to learn more, I'm sure you can connect directly with the Sesame team. Back to you, Lola, in case there are any sort of closing points that the group should consider.
Yeah, I would just invite Tricia for any final words, and then we call it a day for today.
Yeah, in the interests of keeping on time, I'll be very brief. I just want to thank Sesame Workshop for sharing the resource hub with us today. I urge everybody to take a look. There are some fantastic, it's a very, very comprehensive for practitioners, media resources. It's a really fantastic repository of diverse types of resources that are useful for all of us. I want to thank them for being such a valued member of the Moving Minds Alliance, and I look forward to seeing some of you at the annual meeting next week. Thank you for your time, everybody.